Welcome. I'm so excited to have you today. This is going to be
Yeah, me
fun.
too. I can't wait. I know our topic is confidence and pleasure. And
Hmm.
so you and I have had a conversation before, and I feel like we could just talk for hours about all of this.
Yes. And I think it largely stems from my just fascination with like sensuality and just diving into it so much with having a pole dancing studio and teaching all the sensual movement things. So when I found you, I was like, okay, I love it. She's a doctor. She has all this experience in sensuality and pleasure and all that fun stuff. And I just was excited to bring it to my girls and my clients. And then the podcast was great too. So I'm very excited to have you here. Now, some of our girls here today probably haven't heard much, so I would love for you to give us your spiel, a little intro, and then feel free. We can just start diving in. And I did mention if you ladies have any questions at any time, or or you're feeling a little bit shy, feel free to send it through the chat. You can send it to me. You can send it to Dr. Nicole, and we'll tackle that as well.
Yeah, for sure. And
Yeah.
I'm pretty much an open book. So any questions, nothing is too much. And just since I'm on my phone, it's hard to see the chat. And we're such a small,
Oh,
we're a
totally.
pretty intimate group. So you can
Yes.
unmute anyone who wants to unmute themselves. Feel free to interrupt me at any time. I will not be offended.
Sure. And if anything comes my way, I'll totally let you know.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So I am Dr. Nicole Marcione. You don't have to call me Dr. Nicole though. That's for my students usually. so
So Nicole's fine.
um,
I worked for a doctor, so it's so weird for me to not be like doctor, it's a
I mean,
respect.
I appreciate that. And, if I'm speaking in like on stage or in a lecture hall with grad students or something like that, for sure. But, if it's your kink and you want to call me Dr. Nicole, then please do.
Ooh,
If it's
maybe.
not, then Nicole is fine.
I love it.
So yeah, a little bit about my background. My graduate work, my doctoral work was around aging, gerontology, longevity, those things. And I graduated with my PhD in 2019. So I am not an MD doctor, not a physician, but a research scientist. And I'm a board certified health coach. And so when I graduated, I decided I didn't want to go into academia. And I started working with clients on health and wellness. I've always been interested in movement, nutrition, all of these things. And so that's kind of where I started as a coach slash consultant, in helping people age better and want those wanting to live a longer life. And so what I realized though, and we've talked about this, is you can only talk about nutrition and exercise so much before you're like, oh my gosh, please, I'm gonna like throw up if I have to say eat your greens and drink more water one more time. Because let's face it, we all know that, right?
Right.
We all know it. Whether we do it or not is a whole different thing. And so that whole different thing, what I realized was everyone but women in particular, unraveling or uncovering the reasons why we may not do the best things for ourselves. And that a lot of times came down to like worthiness, enoughness, shame, guilt, all of these things.
Mhm.
And so that's when I started getting more interested in, okay, why do we have this going on and what can we do to help? And usually it was getting back into our bodies and more into our senses. And so that started my study a few years ago on sexual wellness, bringing more sensuality into my own life. And then, if we get to it, talking a little bit more about trauma informed kink, or why kink can help us heal, getting back into our bodies as women.
Mhm.
I was raised in a cult. I was born into it. I left when I was 29, so almost 20 years ago. And so, because of that, and then I'm half Italian and half Mexican, so culturally very conservative. Um, because of that, like sexuality or sensuality or anything around those topics was taboo, was no. In fact, it was like against God, basically.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up
Uh,
Catholic, so I feel you. Yeah.
yeah. And so a lot of that has informed my own healing work, moving through religious trauma, moving through purity culture, as well as just anyone who has been raised and conditioned as a woman in the society, right? So we all have different layers and levels of where we're at, but no one gets away, unfortunately, with being touched by this purity culture, um, or thinking pleasure is selfish, um, no matter who you are, if we're alive during this time and we're a woman.
Hmm.
I have a coach that she says, maybe you haven't bought into religion, but religion has bought into you. And just being in the society we're in North America, or I don't know, maybe people are here from all different countries, but our society in general has a basis in puritanical thinking, philosophy. And so what that does as women is, we're supposed to be sexy in one way, but then if we are, we're considered like a slut, or what's wrong with her, or shouldn't
Yeah.
you be a mom, or what kind of example or role model are you going to be? Now, sexy means so many different things to so many different people,
Hmm.
but it's very confusing as women. Like, wait, which one am I supposed to be? Because
Yeah.
and how do I feel? And then we just start covering that up with all kinds of stuff. And then eventually, most of us, although not me, I'm not a mother, but many women become mothers, wives, partners, bosses, team members. And then all of those things get covered up. All of our desires, our wants, our needs,
Hmm.
um, aren't being met. And so this leads to so many things like resentment and burnout and fatigue. And my work, so getting back to this, because I'm on a little bit of a soapbox,
That's
my
okay. When you're passionate about something, it's like all of a sudden you're in flow and you're just, this is why I do what I do. Right.
right,
So it's
right. And
great.
so that is my work, in that my mission is I really want to help women get back into their bodies, realize they've been probably repressing a few things, and what are those things, and how can we safely bring them to the surface and start really enjoying life and bringing pleasure into our lives on a daily basis, whether that is in a sexual way or non-sexual. Like, there's so many different levels of pleasure. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about my background, I think, in a nutshell.
I love that. Yeah, I think it's great for our girls here to hear that and just see like, okay, where are we going with this? Like, it's yes, I want us to get into like the sexy tips and the confidence stuff, and we have Valentine's Day right around the corner, and some fun things, that tactical things that they can walk away with, but also understanding why this work is important beyond just those little fun, sexy things, right? So when
Yeah.
you start working with women, because I know this is something that you do, and they come in and we have, like, like a baseline level of things that we're comfortable with, right? We're comfortable with as far as exuding sexuality and sensuality, and things that aren't. And maybe they have desires to break past that. Are there some exercises that you usually recommend or have them work through, just to sort of uncover that and start to do the work?
Yeah. One of the very first things is asking ourselves, and it seems like such a basic question, but what do I want? What do
Yeah.
I desire?
It's such a basic question, not to interrupt you, but I feel the need to just insert 2 cents here, because oftentimes I will ask clients that, working on an online setting, and they don't even know where to start, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I love to bring it down to a more tangible, like you just said, answer, because when we think of the question, what do I want? What do I desire? So many of us go into this like existential, why am I here? What does my soul deeply want? What is my mission in life? And that can be really intimidating to think about that, because maybe we don't have the time or the bandwidth, the energy to really sit with that. And so sometimes it's just as simple as, what do I want for breakfast? Like, am I making this breakfast because it's what my kids or my partner wants? Or is this really what I desire?
Mm-hmm.
And taking little steps like that is actually very revolutionary. It's actually very radical for you as a woman to say, you know, I want blueberry pancakes this morning instead of eggs and toast that we always have. Or I want to wear something that feels good. Like, I purposely put this dress as kind of velvety on because it feels good. It makes me feel cozy, and I don't know, the word delicious is coming to my mind, as opposed to, what I probably would normally kind of be wearing, which is my Viore jogger pants, and that are just like comfortable joggers and a sweatshirt, right? Because it's cold and rainy here in LA. But taking these little snippets of time and doing something that seems relatively small, but can have huge impacts, because a lot of times our nervous system is like, oh, I don't want to do that, because what if someone says, but we always have it this way, or but that's not what I want, or why are you insisting on this? And so in the little steps that we can take, whether it's how we're dressing that day, what we want for breakfast, where we want to go on vacation, and then we start to make it bigger and bigger to like big desires. Maybe it's going back to school. Maybe it's changing your career. Maybe it's leaving a relationship that hasn't been serving you, or maybe it's committing to a relationship that you haven't wanted to commit to in a while. It can be as small or as big. And so to start out in a very way that's not scary, that feels safe, and that doesn't send you packing, because sometimes we can just be like, go make a list of 100 things you desire. That's actually really hard if you've never done that before.
Yeah.
And so it might be so overwhelming. A person would say, you know what, never mind. It doesn't matter. I'm just comfortable how I am, even though maybe it's not serving me the best, but it's what I know and what I'm familiar with. So I'm going to stick to it. So finding these smaller, easier ways to dip our toes in before we go into like the full out self massage, or, demanding certain things from our partner in bed, or whatever that might be.
Yeah. Can we speak to why in your experience you feel like women avoid doing this work? Because I know, as a recovering people pleaser, it's easy to just default to what's easy for everybody, easy for the kids, easy for the husband or partner, and sort of continue to push my desires and needs to the back burner because that feels selfish. And I know that I hear that often from women, and I would love to hear your insights on working through that, honestly.
Yeah. So one thing is for us to not beat ourselves up if we're feeling this way, because those are the words we've been told probably most of our life. And if we weren't told those specific words, it was the modeling we saw growing up. Like, I don't know about you, but I didn't see any women who were career driven, or who were praised for doing things outside the home. It was usually their role as a mother, or their role as a housewife, and anyone who kind of wanted to break out of that, you might say, was either guilted or shamed, or perhaps they had to go to work because of finances,
Mm-hmm.
but it was always like that was used as, well, as soon as we get back on our feet, I'm going to go back home to take care of the kids. You know, there was nothing ever rewarded that I had seen, that was like, oh, she's really driven. Look at her. She's becoming whatever, an engineer, or starting her own business, or taking charge of her life. In fact, you know, it's like, oh, well, are you still we ask ourselves, am I still a good mother? Am I still a good wife if I'm taking time to do these things for myself? Because shouldn't I be, you know, cooking or running around or something for somebody else? And this is just the society we have all grown up in, I'm assuming. And so even if we don't consciously, logically think that, that is actually what we've been taught. Even think of the TV shows we grew up with. Yeah. Same thing, right? And so taking that term selfish, and we've probably seen this meme, like self-care is not selfish. And so if we can flip it around about when we take care of ourselves first, then we're able to give to others freely and generously. Now, it doesn't mean that we can't give to others without taking care of ourselves. Most of us have done that our whole life. But what happens, it goes back to, what does that cause? And it might be conscious, it might be unconscious, but it causes resentment, burnout, fatigue, irritation, right? How many of us, I remember I had one, I need to look it up, but I had one post, and it was like the most common things of midlife women. And it was like bitchiness, boredom, Botox, and busyness. I think something like that,
like triple B's.
Yeah. Right. And I think it was and I probably had a few more. I can't remember offhand, but I feel like those are the things that come to the surface if we're not taking care of ourselves, especially in midlife. There's just something about midlife. You hit like 40-ish, and these thoughts start coming up, or these feelings start coming up. And so to really, you know, for anyone listening now or later, to kind of get to those underlying things, like, why am I if something irritates you, okay, why is that? It's probably not the thing like the trash not being taken out. It's probably something else. Or it's probably not that the laundry's still on the floor, although it might be, but it's something else. Like, maybe the underlying thing is no one's ever given me any respect when I ask them to do something, right? And maybe that respect is what's underneath that is like a worthiness issue, or a not enough issue, or not deserving. Right. And so then we start to look at these deep, deep things that on the surface just seem like, I'm just pissed because the trash didn't get taken out and it's garbage day. And that can take a little bit, if I'm honest, a lot of self-reflection, of honesty, of transparency, and bravery, because it's not always pretty when we start to dig under these things that have been put on top of us. And so I don't know if anyone has any comments or thoughts on this in the group, of maybe just one or two things that really irritate you. We don't have to go deep into why, but I would love to hear, like, my number one thing is the trash bins are supposed to be taken out for Thursday morning, and almost always they're not done. And I do it, and I'm just like, mother effer, this is the same thing. And then, but what it is like, am I actually asking and letting people know these are my needs and my desires and my wants, which is to not have to do this all the time, or at least be acknowledged for when I do that. So if you want to put in the chat, like what is something that just really gets under your skin? Like maybe at the gym, it's when people don't put their weights away or leave sweaty towels on the floor, or I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't have
Yeah.
kids, so it could be
No,
anything like that.
I love this because essentially it's like an onion, right? There's layers and you peel away and like on the surface, it's that initial issue, which is the trash. And like I think most of us can probably relate to that because it's a pretty simple household task that if you're not, I don't want to say it's not your job, but you know, you have a partner in the house or children or whatever, it's their responsibility to take care of it and it doesn't get done, then yeah, start peeling away at that. And it's, you start to ask yourself, what am I really mad at? Like, that's how basic I get for that. I mean, I'll give you a simple example that's sort of related, but it made me have to take a second to like really peel the onion back, right? My partner and I'm very much like physical touch and words of affirmation. And we got into this sort of conversation because he was real quiet. And I always associate that with something's wrong, right?
Mhm.
Like if my partner's quiet or one of my friends is off a little bit. And for me, it's challenging to really think like, oh, they're, you know, they can have a mood shift or whatever. And I was making it mean something about me, like I've made them mad or whatever. And he's like, no, I'm just tired. And so I had to really peel that down and say, okay, so what I need is to know that he's okay. We're okay. I haven't done anything wrong. And it's just like, this is what it is. So it's not like, hey, are you okay? It's like, hey, you're not paying attention to me. Are you mad at me?
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah,
So I know it's different, but also kind of in along the same context.
that's huge. And
Mhm.
knowing, first of all, being able to communicate that. Like most people don't talk about it when the circumstances are calm, right? Like you don't want to
Yeah.
talk about it when it's happening because you might be, you know, I can't believe the trash hasn't been taken out all day. No one listens to me. What's wrong? Because then all of a sudden we're the crazy person. Or in your case, like something must be wrong. Please tell me what I can do. Like we start get feeling
Mhm.
responsible and nervous and anxious if someone's
Insecure.
like insecure. And the
Mhm.
other person on the other side, if they don't understand that, they're just like, give me just can you back off and just give me
Yeah.
some space? Like, what's your
Yeah.
problem? I'm still here. Like, what are you worried about? Right. And so having that communication and setting up the boundaries that we all need and the desires that we want to have, which
Mhm.
would be, you know, can we, I understand you need time for quiet or you need some space, but can you just let me know that that's what you're needing so that I can go do something else because I have so many other things to do, but
Yeah.
and I don't have to fester and sit and think, okay, what did I do wrong? And what, you know, am I responsible for? And then start to fawn or whatever we
Mhm.
do, which then ends up probably irritating the other person even more. Like, I just need some
Yeah.
quiet time. And so having these discussions ahead of time and really communicating about what our boundaries are, what our desires are. And again, as women, not feeling responsible for other people's feelings. We want, so as women, people think women only have feminine energy, but we actually have a lot of masculine energy. And mothering, being a mother or mothering, is very masculine. Mothers get shit done, right?
Oh,
We
yes.
do
Okay. I see where you're
things
going with this. I'm like,
in
okay.
that way.
Mhm.
And so we act upon things to take care of people, especially if we think something's wrong. What can I do to fix it? How can I make this better? When sometimes it's just, we need to just step back and let them have whatever moment or thing they need, whether it's a partner or kids or friend or whatever. Now, we can definitely say, is everything okay? Can I support you in any way? Like that's being a loving partner, parent.
Mhm.
But so many times something is quote unquote wrong or feels wrong or whatever. And we immediately go into, okay, time to fix it, time to solve this problem. Let's do it. And that's a very masculine energy, as opposed to stepping into our feminine energy, which is, all right, I'm going to allow and support in a way that's not overbearing and let everyone have time. And then when that person is ready, they can come back to me and let me know they're ready. And you can even say that to the person, I see you need some time or space. Like, let me know when is a good time we can connect again or discuss what needs to be discussed or whatever, instead of us as the mothering masculine energy. Like, what can I do? Mm-hmm. What if I make them their favorite meal? What if I, call someone to help? What if I make them answer the question why they need their space? Because I've been there too,
Yeah.
And so yeah, taking that time also to realize, okay, am I doing this in an energy that is soothing, or is this my, fight or flight popping up, trying to fix something, trying to make sure everything's okay because maybe I had something happen when I was a kid where people, left because they were quiet. And maybe that triggers something, that how we were raised is a really big way in how we behave right now, especially subconsciously. Mm-hmm. I have one quick example. So this is really personal, but I think it's helpful. My partner, he likes to work on cars. And so he's always changed the oil on my car. And so he took a Saturday, or I think it was a Monday holiday, and I was working. And so he said, just leave the car and I'll change the oil. And I said, okay. So then I got back later after work, and he's like, I said, oh, how was your day off? And he goes, oh, well, I spent 6 hours cleaning your car. And I was like, thanks, but why did you do that? Like, why didn't you do something fun? And he got a little upset because I wasn't showing appreciation. And I got a little upset because, see, me growing up, my dad was very demanding on how everything had to be cleaned just so. And so for me, it triggered that, I'm not good enough because you had to clean my car for 6 hours. Not that it was filthy. I'm not like a hoarder or anything, but it just stays outside all day. It wasn't it was fine, but he's just very meticulous. And I am not meticulous. And so what that did was trigger all of these emotions of my dad telling me, basically how terrible I am if I don't clean my car. Mm-hmm. And for him, it triggered his inner child, because he would always do things for his mom or someone else, and it was never good enough. And so here we are, both of us trying to communicate or trying to do something nice for each other. And yet we both, I just wanted him to go have fun and not work. He just wanted me to appreciate his time. And yet here our inner child was
fighting,
freaking out and fighting.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And when we stopped and thought about it, we started talking about it a few hours later, because obviously in the moment that wasn't the case. But so just going back, and I know that's a little off topic, but just going back to thinking, okay, why am I reacting this way or behaving this way? Is it actually the thing that's being done right now? Or is it something that happened when I was younger? Is it something I was told? Is it something I had learned? And then we start really peeling off the layers, like you said.
Yeah, I think this is work that goes unnoticed as far as how important it is. Excuse me. And I've been, reading a lot and really trying to understand this process and trying to be better in conversations and communication. But it does take a lot of work, and stopping before you get too far into an argument or assumptions or hurting feelings. And I would love any sort of real-time tips for that. And I know this was supposed to be like a sexy podcast and stuff, but I really think that this is work that's so important and is not talked about very often. And I
Mhm.
feel like we have a captive audience right now, and I would love to capitalize on that, especially if you find challenges in your communications with your partner and you're stuck in patterns of
Mhm.
repeating these same types of arguments and you're kind of bumping up against a wall. And I feel like sitting back and doing this work is very, very important for you to move through issues.
Well, yeah, and it it leads to more intimacy, to deeper
Definitely.
intimacy with others, right? When we can sit down and say this. So in a way, it is directly connected to getting closer to people, to our loved ones. I mean, I will say I'm a total work in progress. Believe me, like he's Italian, I'm Mexican Italian. Like when it's in the moment, it's kind of hard
Yeah.
to like stop
Passionate.
and breathe, right?
Mhm.
And we're both stubborn. And we're both Geminis. So like I would say if you can find a pause and breathe and be able to step away. Now, you have to, if you step away, you can't just step away because if your partner has what you were just talking about, your how you felt like what's wrong, is this person like in its most extreme form going to leave me because of this because
Yeah.
they are quiet or go away. You can't just step away. You have to say, look, I need some space and I need some time and we'll come back to this and I love you. Or don't worry, I just need some time and I need some space. And then take your time and space. Now, that could be 30 minutes, that could be 3 days, but
Mhm.
coming back to it when you're feeling calm.
Right.
For myself, I have to tell myself a lot because I was also raised in a physically abusive home that I'm safe.
Mhm.
Like, I will put my hand on my body, my heart or my belly, and I'll be like, Nicole, you're safe. No one's going to hurt you. You're an adult now. You're in control. And so for some of us, we need to do that for ourselves in order to move forward and then think, okay, I'm okay. No one's going to get out a belt. We're,
Mhm.
we're going to talk through this and realize I can be heard. Like I have a voice and I can use it to speak my feelings because a lot of us were not allowed to do that when we were little, even if we
Yeah.
weren't spanked. Like we just were
Yeah.
told to be quiet, to not show our emotions. And so those two things for me have been um, really useful is to one, be able to step away, but say, like, I still love you. This isn't the end because
Mhm.
we can, our subconscious, our inner child can feel like it's the end. And then to establish that safety in my body, which is like, how do I ground myself, put my hands on my body, breathe, and and literally tell myself I am safe and I am in control right now.
Mhm.
And so those are probably two really big ones for me.
Yeah. This is so good. I just got the chills because it's so important to not avoid these conversations. And I am an infamous avoider in, my past marriage and relationships where I'm like, okay, I'm just going to sweep that under the rug. And then something happens that's very trivial, right? Like it could be he sneezes the wrong way. And then all of a sudden the volcano erupts, right? So I think what you said about coming back and revisiting it is so important for my women here listening because a lot of times I irrationalize, well, oh, I'm overreacting or I'm just being too emotional or I have too high of expectations. And so I start trying to give myself permission to not revisit the conversation and express like, these are my needs. This is what I need. And not feel like I'm being needy, even though I'm asking for my needs to be met. I think it's so important for us to get comfortable asking for what it is that we need. And sometimes, again, like you said at the beginning, sometimes we don't even know. What do you want? What do you
Mhm.
need? Right.
Mhm. Mhm. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's a feeling, like
Hmm.
we want a feeling to be acknowledged. Maybe it's not an actual behavior, and that can be if you're in a relationship with a male. I don't know. I have some friends who are women, uh, married to women, and I don't feel like this is as typical. But if you're in a relationship with a guy, like they're very data driven and facts and logical.
Hmm.
And when you say, I feel a certain way, not you make me feel, because that like puts them off right away to anyone, but
Totally.
I feel this, this, and this. Sometimes it doesn't translate to them.
Hmm.
But if you can let them know, like, these feelings are really important to me and I just need you to acknowledge them. Like, you don't have to understand them, but this is what I'm feeling at
Hmm.
this moment.
Hmm.
And so instead of like, well, let's get out the whiteboard, and line by line, like if this, then that. Like some
Yeah.
of us are in relationships with very analytical partners, and I don't work that way at all. Like,
Yeah.
and so not being afraid to say how you feel and to not be afraid to like be vague sometimes. Like, I don't know exactly why, or I don't know exactly what it is, but it makes me feel unloved. It makes me feel unappreciated. It makes me feel scared. I feel uncomfortable, right? All of these different things.
Mhm.
And you don't have to have an explanation necessarily at the moment, although later on you probably would want to dig into it yourself. And um, there was one more thing. Oh, if we keep repressing these things or shoving it down, like you said, like, oh, I
Mhm.
was just asking for too much or too needy. What happens, and this is why we see so much autoimmune disease in women, I feel, is
Mhm.
because of repressed emotions. But repressed emotions come out, that manifest as physical illness. And there's just like, there's science behind that. And we see it a lot. We think of people who undergo really stressful situations and they end up sick somehow later on, either with just a cold or with cancer, right? Whatever the extreme
Mhm.
is, but we all know something like that. And so to be able to communicate, to be able to let these feelings be heard, maybe not understood, but at least heard, and not feel like you shouldn't be able to do that, that's huge. That's huge. And when that happens, then we start to feel more secure in our own body. Then we start to listen, bringing it back to like embodiment. We start to trust what our body is saying because we're listening to how it feels. And then we're able to move forward in that. And sometimes that helps us figure out even more what our desires and what our needs are because we're actually listening to our bodies and not just stuck in our head.
And I think that's a very foreign concept for a lot of women. I know for myself personally, I think last year really it clicked for me, which was my gut intuition, which like, hi, it took me 45 years,
Mm,
where it's like my gut is usually never wrong. And so if I'm having a gut feeling about how something's making me feel or a situation or an interaction with my partner, I have to sit with that for a second and really get clear on what it is. Like, what am I
mhm.
missing? What am I lacking? What am I needing? And being able to have that conversation, which is very challenging. But I think something that was very distinct that you said is leading conversations with, it makes me feel this rather than like you make me feel, and kind of getting into that dialogue where it puts someone on the defense. I just really had to put myself in the other person's shoes, really, which is what it comes down to, I think, often.
Yeah, because if we love the person that we're talking to, whether it's a partner, friend, a kid, a parent, whoever, like they don't want to hurt us, right?
Yeah.
Just like we don't want to hurt them, but we get hurt all the time. And it's because we put up these walls. Of course, we're going to put up a wall if someone's coming at us. Like, that's our survival as humans. This is how we survived our entire, evolutionary journey.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can somehow dismantle those walls, bring that down so the other person doesn't feel attacked, but the other person can feel empathy towards us. Like if someone said to you, if you were, I'm scared, like I feel scared right now because of what just happened. You're not going to be like, well, that's stupid. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. I
You're going
mean,
to be like,
it definitely tampers the like visceral response, I feel like, right?
right, the go F yourself. Believe me,
Right.
that's come out of my mouth plenty of times.
For sure.
I'm like not ashamed to say that. But yeah, so instead of, why can't you blah blah blah, it's like I feel really hurt and I feel very insecure, unstable, unsettled, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So then that drops they're able to drop their defense and be able to listen. Now, it might not be 100% like, oh, of course, now I'm going to take the trash out all the time. But at least they know, like, it's not just because you're being a bitch. It's because there's some deeper feeling that's going on. And, you might be able to control that. You might not. And that's usually where therapy or coaching or
Yeah.
exercise or whatever it is that gets you emotionally, in a place that feels safe and regulated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, knowing what does that for you. It might be going for a walk, it might be breathing, it might be taking a nap. And those are, again, going back to what we need. What do I need in this moment? Like, I need a nap, I need a workout, I need a bowl of ice cream. Like, I'm not opposed to that. Like, yeah, we can't be eating bowls of ice cream all the time and
Yeah.
still live long, healthy lives. But hey, if that makes you feel good in one moment, and like, don't feel guilty, enjoy it and have it. And so yeah. And I think just briefly getting, because sometimes women that I work with are like, well, I just don't even know where to start
I was just going to ask
with
you. Mm-hmm.
getting into my body. And there's a few things I feel like. One is just creating a more sensuous environment, meaning getting into your senses, like having a candle lit or wearing nice clothes or taking a nice bath. Like water, warm water is so healing. You could take a bath or a shower. I'm not really a bath person, but I love showers. Movement, like what makes your body feel good? Is it dancing? Is it weightlifting? Is it Pilates? Is it yoga? Whatever it is, maybe it's walking, whatever it is, there's no wrong answer, but doing it more, because that's going to get you connected into your body as something that feels good.
Mm-hmm.
Another really simple thing that I think works quickly is body massage, self. Like, you can go to someone else and have it, but getting a nice body oil or lotion, and just after the shower, or it doesn't have to be after a shower, but that's usually when we put lotion on, like taking some time and some care of how it smells, how it feels. And then a really big one, and this might be like a little bit, I don't want to say shocking, but not the usual, is actually breast massage, like self breast massage. It helps to open up our hearts. We carry a lot of tension in our chest, especially if you have bigger breasts. Like, I don't, but I just know women who do, and there's so much heaviness and rounded forwardness because of that. And it's physical, but it's also emotional as well.
Mm-hmm.
So just to open up the chest area, to like give that area some love, right? If you breastfed, like, these are things that kept your baby alive. These are things
Yeah.
that we as women have, and to really appreciate that. again, it's a very simple act. And again, it might seem a little bit weird, but once you start, you're like, oh, wow, this really, it doesn't just feel good. Like it goes deeper. It really does kind of crack you open emotionally with your heart.
I will say I have done this and it is remarkable. And I also feel like a tactical type of tool in tandem that I have found useful, especially because I feel like it's challenging when you're used to communicating or dealing with challenges with your partner. There's like a default. And now it's like reprogramming how you communicate. And that is so hard. It's such a journey and just it does not happen overnight. So part of it is a lot of it is I need to take space to tap into my senses. And I didn't know I was doing this, but I am. So bath time is a huge thing and getting in the water and lighting candles and coming out and doing chest massage with oil. And this is something that I do a few nights per week, but in tandem also sitting with a journal, which I know a lot of women
Mhm.
resist, and I still get a lot of like, I don't know what to do. And so doing those things in tandem with excavating your feelings on a sheet of paper and really getting clear about how this maybe particular situation is making you feel helps you just untangle the yarn in your brain and also allows you to take a step back and come back and reread it so you feel prepared to have a conversation that maybe is going to feel very disorienting for you if you're used to communicating in a certain way all the time.
Yeah, that's huge. And some of us might have a partner who maybe isn't even open to all of this. Because let's
Mhm.
face it, not everyone is open to this type of work. But I will tell you, the more love you start showing yourself, and the more worthiness you start feeling for yourself, and the more respect you start giving yourself by setting boundaries, by knowing what you want and need, others around you are actually going to start behaving differently. It just
Oh,
happens. I
most
don't know
definitely.
how, but if you start loving yourself more and start exuding this love because you're just like so into your body and you know you're worthy of all the goodness,
Mhm.
all of a sudden your kids start doing things for you. Your partner starts doing things for you without you asking. And things, I don't know. It's not like you're walking down the street and you know, road just is paved with gold as you walk down the
Yeah.
street. I just think with
People are
like little
throwing
birds
rose
and
petals.
rainbows. Exactly.
Yeah.
But sometimes it can feel like that. And it's because it really is, it starts with us.
Mhm.
So if we feel we're not worthy, if we feel we're undeserving, if we feel self-doubting all the time, then that is the energy we're putting out, and people are going to just believe you, right? Energetically and out loud, if that's how you treat yourself. But if you can switch that by doing these little tools we've been talking about this whole time, then all of a sudden other people start reacting in a very, very different way. Um, I pulled a card before we started, and
I
there's
love that.
this deck that I love. I don't know if it's called the let's see, doo, doo, doo. Wild and Sacred Feminine deck.
Ooh, okay. I love that.
And I sat down with the intention, I was like, okay, I'm going to be speaking with Diane's group. I really want to like be present, and what do I need to know? And before I even started shuffling, this one card popped out, and I was like, no, no, not that card. And I put it back in, and then I shuffled, shuffled, shuffled. And then of course I
It
picked
came back.
that same card, and
Okay.
it was La Curandera, which is a healer. Here's the book, and that's what
Okay.
okay,
Yes.
healer. Okay, so it starts with a poem that I love, and I don't have my glasses, so I put this away. Any other midlife people? So it starts with a poem by Adrienne Marie Brown, and it says, I touch my own skin, and it tells me that before there was any harm, there was miracle. And I was like, whoa,
That's
That's
deep.
what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah.
It says, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but just a couple of lines. Curandera comes from a long line of medicine women. She's the archetypical healer who knows just the right medicine to move body and soul back into alignment. When you draw this card, know that healing in some form is on offer, whether to avail upon yourself or transmit to another. And yeah, it just goes on to talk about looking beneath the surface to see our ailments as opportunities to open up something in our heart that has been locked away. And so when I read that, especially that poem, I touch my own skin, and it tells me that before there was any harm, there was a miracle.
Mm.
And I thought, oh, that's so
So
beautiful
deep.
for what we're talking about.
For sure. And I think while the conversation was geared to be towards like some sexy fit confident, tips, communication is so sexy. Let me just tell
Right?
you. It is
Getting
like,
our needs met. So
gosh, it is
sexy.
so like my partner and I talk so much, but it's something that's very new and foreign to me, and getting in touch with how to communicate better. It, again, going back to what you were saying about intimacy, it's gonna take you so much further than like, "Oh, I bought some chocolates and some massage oil and, like, roses and, like, happy Valentine's Day," right?
Right.
And I know it might be challenging sometimes to feel comfortable to be in a space to get into some communication, deep conversations with your partner, especially if this is new, but let me tell you, it is incredibly transformative, for sure.
Yeah. And for those listening who aren't in partnership, it still is any relationship, whether it's family or friends or future partners or with
Yourself,
yourself.
right?
Exactly.
Love that.
And I will say I have just little notes, like a few things to increase sensuality in
Yes, let's
your
spend 10
everyday life.
minutes.
Just a
Let's go
little
down
quick
that. Yeah,
bullet
why we're
point.
really here.
And it really is using our senses to bring pleasure into our life. So sensuality does not necessarily mean sexuality. It's just using our senses. So our sight, hearing, taste, touch. What am I missing? Let's see.
Smell.
Smell. And then the sixth one, intuition.
Mhm.
I like to add that one. So just how do you get more into your senses in your everyday life? Whether that's if you're on a walk and you see some roses, like do you stop to smell them literally?
Mhm.
Um, or wearing clothes that feel good against your skin, like taking time when you're doing your skin care routine in the morning or at night to massage your face, to touch your skin, to appreciate like this body that has done so much for us, no matter how it
Mhm.
looks or how old it is or what's drooping that didn't droop before or what's not, the color it used to be, it's gray
Yeah.
instead, whatever that might be. And just telling our bodies like, thank you, I love you, thank you for carrying me through life, for giving birth to the kids I love, or for whatever things it's done for us. Having fresh flowers in the house. Like, I don't know where everyone lives. I'm in California. There's a store called Trader Joe's. You can get flowers
Mhm.
for $9 a dozen roses. Like, it's not something that has to be outrageously priced. I have a little rose candle that I have lit right now, little candle
Yeah.
and
I
my
love it.
deck. And then there's some
Oh,
flowers,
so
right?
beautiful. I love
So I
that.
try to practice
Mhm.
what I preach. And then, taking that massage oil and self massage, and then
Mhm.
really seeing what feels good, bringing in some foods that you like. Maybe it's enjoying a beautiful cup of coffee every morning. And you're
Yeah.
going to drink the coffee anyways, right? I do. So why not make it, a quiet 15-minute time where you either think or meditate or read or pull a card or put on some music, or maybe it's a dance for 10 minutes, right?
Mhm.
Anything that just is feeling good and is involving your senses. Um, and then I really do love, I mean, it's kind of fun. For a long time, I was like, what's the point of lingerie? Like, that's so stupid. You just take it off
I love
anyway.
it. It's my favorite thing ever.
Well, now, I mean, I do too. And I've just been having so much fun. And now if you see all my Instagram ads, oh my gosh, you would think I like worked in a burlesque show or in a
Well, I
dungeon
did tell
because
them
it's so
before you
cool.
came on that you were experimenting with dominatrix
Oh, yeah.
classes. So, I mean, we'll keep everybody for maybe like 10 more minutes and let's just like talk about some of that fun stuff, lingerie, your things you're learning in your dominatrix training. That might be something somebody secretly would like to explore. And
Yeah.
I'm all for learning all the things.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
for anyone who maybe wants to know more, but maybe doesn't want to say
Admit
it on a
it.
Zoom call in front of strangers, like
Yeah.
please reach out to me. Diane has my email, or you can reach out to me on Instagram. It's at Dr. Nicole Marcione. Because I'd love to talk about this. So yeah, I took a course last fall. It was only 8 weeks. And it was it's called Mistress Class, and it was put on by a pro dominatrix. She's been a dominatrix for 20 years, but she also has her PhD in psychology or education.
Love
And
that.
I love learning from like really smart women on the margins, you know? And so she was at Berkeley getting her master's and PhD and needed to make some money to support her grad student life. And so someone told her about this and she had no idea. So then she started working at a local place and became a dominatrix and just loved it so much. And then when she graduated with her PhD, she decided, forget, becoming an adjunct professor
Insane.
doesn't quite pay as well as being a dominatrix.
That
And
is
so,
insane, but I'm
isn't
here for it.
right? And so as we went through class in these 8 weeks, it was really a 101.
I love how you
Uh,
say it was just 8 weeks, where like most of us would just like find a YouTube video and be like, how do you be a dominatrix?
well, that's true. But why this was so intriguing to me, because yes, you could just go on YouTube
Yeah.
or, on Google and find something, is she took each part of BDSM. So that stands for, bondage, um, dominant, submissive, masochist, or sadist. And she took each of those, and of course, we learned what you could do to people in a dungeon if you were really going pro. I don't plan
Yeah.
on going pro, but she also taught how we take it out of the dungeon. So,
Yeah.
for instance, like someone might like to be gagged, right? Um, and so, where in your life, at work, in your family, are you gagging yourself? Where can we take
Oh.
off that gag? Or are we putting ourselves through this? Are
Mhm.
we getting some sort of secret fascination or satisfaction of gagging ourselves in that way, like not using our voice? I mean, just really like where are
Yeah.
we
Super deep.
taught for bondage? Like
Mhm.
where do we feel handcuffed in life where we have the key and we could just unlock it, but we
Mhm.
don't for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And so in that way, so it really helped with learning how to be more assertive, learning to know what you want, learning to use your voice, learning to feel confident in your body no matter what. Um, all of these things
Yeah. So it
that
wasn't just a
aren't just
lesson in like spicy things to do in the bedroom.
right,
It's
how to spank someone. No, no.
right. Right.
It was
Yeah.
definitely this more philosophical, which I loved. And so last Saturday, a week ago, so the whole course was online, but she has a graduation party. I think she's run the course maybe 8 times. And she has a graduation party in person at her home in Berkeley, which is just outside San Francisco. And what cracked me up, because I would say, I think there were about 50 people that showed up.
Oh, wow.
And what cracked me up is some of these women who are in corporate jobs used their corporate self-development leadership allowance that you get, for this class. And
Insane.
they were
I
like,
love it.
we're better would I learn leadership skills and how to be more assertive? And they were saying they've used it so far in boardrooms, like to be heard more
Wow.
in meetings. Exactly. And
This is
so
insane.
this is what I'm bringing in now, I think, more to my work, more than nutrition and
Yeah.
exercise, is
Yeah.
like, how do we use these tools of a dominatrix to
Mhm.
like bring out our inner dom, to bring out this wisdom that all women have. We all
Mhm.
have it in, we all have this power in us. We just have been taught to be afraid of it. And so, how do we welcome that and be more comfortable with that and then use it in order to create the lives we want?
Oh my gosh. Okay. I feel like we need to stop there because I want to keep going. But I feel like this is like podcast number 3.
I think so too.
Please and thank you. Yeah, I feel like I would love to dive more into that and how that can be brought in, like you were saying, in day-to-day roles that you have where it's not like, "Oh, I'm learning how to be a dominatrix just so I can boss my partner around in bed or, do this professionally even," because there are professional
Right. Oh, yeah.
dominatrixes that teach couples or women
Mm-hmm.
such as yourself. So I think this would be so much fun for another deep dive conversation, but, um yeah, this was such a beautiful conversation. I really enjoyed I'm, like, captivated, minute to minute. I hope everybody else was too. Any last I guess, I know we left everybody a little bit on a cliffhanger, but last parting tips, hints, or anything that's punchy for you to just have a soundbite for the Valentine's, communicate, yes, is one for
Yeah.
sure, but anything tactical that yeah, that we can take away for next week?
I really think asking yourself what would make you feel more loved
Mm,
from yourself, not from others, but how do you give yourself the love you desire?
mhm.
And then once you know that, you can express it to others on how you want to be taken care of and loved yourself. Because if you don't know how, people are going to love you in their way, and that might not be the way that translates to you. And so you might continue to feel unloved, even though they're trying to love you.
I
And
love that.
so, yeah, I
That's
just
so
think like
juicy.
feeling your own love.
That's so juicy, and again, it can feel very disorienting for a lot of people who are recovering people pleasers who are just like, "Well, I don't know." And so it's a practice.
Yeah.
It really is. It's
Never
definitely
ending
it's a
either.
never
And
ending
always
practice.
evolving, right? So one we
Right.
might feel loved by one thing, and in a few months it might change for sure. And to be okay with that.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, this was great. We didn't get any questions come through. I think everybody's just silently like absorbing, which I love. And of course,
Right?
if you have last minute lingering things, feel free to plug it in the chat box. You had a download as well that they could
Oh yeah.
grab. And maybe I will resend the replay and add that link in. So for those of you that were on live, but if you're listening to the podcast at a later date, we'll have that link in the show notes as well. But I would love for you to just share where everybody can connect with you once they are
Yes.
done, because this was such a great conversation.
Oh my
I'm
gosh, thank you so much. I had so
yeah.
much fun. Yeah, so this is the it's a mini workbook. Don't let it scare workbook scare you. It's only like 3 pages long, but it's on midlife and sensuality, and so it just has a few tips on how to bring more sensuality into your daily life, which we touched upon. And then I think the best way, social media wise, I'm on all of them, but just Instagram is probably where I'm at the most, and that's at Dr. Nicole Marcione, just DR, and then my whole name spelt out. And then my website is integrativeaging.com. That's where you can also click on the mini workbook. And so, yeah, those are the main places. And just again, please feel free to reach out, DM me or email me. Um, and yeah, I love talking about this stuff. If anyone's interested in that class, she's running it again, I think pretty soon. I don't get a kickback from it. I was just so impressed, and it was so incredible that I'm just telling everyone
Yeah,
about it. So, so yeah, just reach out and let me know.
definitely. I would definitely like to know more.
I think you would.
I feel like that is just right up my alley. So I feel like that's the next step I need to take. So I would love to know more. But thank you so much for taking time out of your day today to be here with our tribe and just share all of the amazing aspects of communication and self-love and really just owning what it is that we need. It
Thank
was
you so
very
much.
important. Yeah. All right, you
I
guys.
loved it.
Well, thank you. You have a great Sunday and we'll talk soon.
See you later.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Awesome.